Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi, how are you guys? Welcome to ICG annual networking event at Sundance. We're mixing it up this year and starting the event with a panel. And we got two fantastic DPs who both have movies here. And I've seen one of the movies, so I'm at a little bit of a loss for Oliver's movie, but we're going to get into that. So let me go right to it and introduce who we have. To my immediate left is Erik, and his movie is Atropia. I saw it last night. I've been coming to Sundance 20 years, and I told him I don't think I've seen a movie at Sundance like this movie. It is fantastic and very hard to kind of quantify what it is. And Oliver Bokelberg, just next to Erik, has a movie called Last Days, which is directed by Justin Lin. So some of you might remember Justin from Better Luck Tomorrow many years ago. So let's get right into it. I want to talk a little bit about your Sundance lineage and history. I'm going to start with you, Oliver. So I did a deep dive, as you know, and your first film at Sundance was called Bootopia, which was a documentary about models. I don't know if you remember it. Supermodels. 1998. You followed that up with The Station Agent, which won both the Sundance Audience Award and the Dramatic Grand Jury Prize. And you did a couple movies with Tom McCarthy, The Visitor, and Win-Win a little bit later, and in there were about 6 or 7 other movies mixed in. So this is your first time back to Sundance, by my calculations, since 2011.
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a movie here with a director who also hasn't been here in a very long time, because he went on to do kind of a different career path with the Fast and Furious and television as well.
His movie Better Luck Tomorrow won the year before Sundance,
Before The Station Agent, yeah.
So we're both about 20-something years apart.
So what does it feel like to be back is the first question. Next, how did you hook up with Justin to do Last Days?
David, can't use the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, David. It's truly fantastic to be back. I'm really thrilled to be back. I've disappeared a little bit for 10 or 12 years in the world of television, and it's been great, and it's been wonderful. But making a film again and being here reminds me why I got into this in the first place. So it's not only the film, the idea that you get into a project and you design a project, you get to make it and you get to finish it and you get to show it and share it with people. With television you don't have that. People watch it at home, and these television shows never end. So you keep it going from season to season to season. I did 7 years on Scandal, so that puts you in sort of a mode of, working. But the great thing is in television and doing pilots and other things, I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of directors, and Justin I met on a pilot called The Endgame for NBC. So we did that maybe 3 years ago in New York. And we had a great time working together, so I was thrilled and happy that he took me on to this project, which is sort of his passion project, his return to independent movie.
Great. We'll talk about that in a minute. Erik, I want to get to you now. So you're on a little bit of a heater here, 3 years in a row with Sundance. 2023 was the 1001, which we covered in the magazine. You guys can look that up on ICGmagazine.com. That was a feature debut of A.V. Rockwell. Last year was I Saw the TV Glow, which was a midnight film, but it was probably the most popular movie last year at Sundance, I'm safe to say, as far as...
It was a very buzzy film.
Yeah, critically reviewed. And then this year, Atropia, and I guess your first film I have you was 2016, Jacqueline Argentine, if you remember that one.
Yeah.
So you're in a little bit different space than Oliver, but I'm curious how you come into this Sundance, having come off, 3 years, 2 really well-reviewed movies. I'm not sure how they impacted your overall career. We could talk about that, but...
Wait, what was the question?
Just Sundance in general.
Sundance.
Coming back after 3 years in a row, yeah.
It's weird not to hear any. My third year, it's. I feel really lucky, obviously, that you can't plan for this kind of stuff. But it's a. I feel like this is kind of like a special year in a way. There are talks of it moving to Salt Lake or other cities or something like that. So I think it's nice for me to come back and kind of experience the last 3 years potentially of being here. And Sundance has been, it's a very special, when I describe it to people, it's like it's the American festival that really all of the film industry kind of from east to west coast comes to like gather around. And there's a lot of other great festivals, but it's kind of where you sell a film in the American market for the most part. It's the biggest marketplace, so there is a lot of attention on it. So I think it's a really special place to be in, and also the history of it for American independent films and stuff like that. So I feel great that
And you also have all three of your last films been with first-time directors, by the way. A.V. Rockwell was, and Atropia was Haley Gates. That's her first directing, and was
Jane's second film.
second film.
Which Jane's first film, We're All Going to the World's Fair, was at Sundance, but it was during COVID.
Right.
But it was part of I think the midnight section as well.
So one of the things we want to talk about, I don't know how many people in this room are based in Los Angeles, but I imagine a fair amount are. We're not going to sugarcoat it. It's been a tough couple of years in LA. It's still tough. Erik's film was shot all in Santa Clarita at an existing movie ranch. Oliver's film was shot actually around the world in Thailand, London, but he did 2 days in Southern California with his team. So the question to both of you is, what are the benefits you found from using a union crew, an IA crew, who are going to have probably a lot of experience on these small films? Like, where are the real value adds, for using a union crew on these smaller films? I'll start with you, Oliver.
Our film is not that small, but I mean, just money-wise. But I think there is, LA has some of the, New York too, we have some of the greatest crews in the world, so it's reliability, right? Not only can I also know the system, right? I'm used to the way that the American system works, which is a well-functioning system, and I can rely on my guys. So that's not only that I have a relationship with my family there for 10 years, but it is a reliability, right? I mean, I went to Thailand and I loved my crew there. We worked all locally wherever we went. And, half my crew was fantastic. And, there was a couple that were not as great, but that's okay because we all in it together, right? So we have the guy who's better at focus pulling, then the other guy will use him on the difficult shot. So we're all here to support each other and not let anybody fail, right, in general, unless, there's no other way around it. But I think it's reliability. I know what I'm getting. I know we worked at 120 degrees, I think, up in Toronto.
You were in the Mojave Desert.
We were in the Mojave Desert, and the guys were, and guys and girls were, some of them were getting heat strokes and falling over. And, we all take care of each other, right? One of them had to go out in the heat stroke. The others are coming to me and say, look, this has happened, and everybody else steps it up, right? We'll take care, make sure nobody else gets sick, but, we take care of each other. I think that's the key.
Yeah, and a lot of that crew was from your episodic work, right?
Yeah.
That you went to here.
Yeah, you build a family, and you do build a family, and you try to support your family. Some of my guys I've been with for 10 years, so I saw their kids grow up. They saw my kids grow up, so you're not going to let them be home without a job.
Great. How about you?
The benefits of a union crew.
Particularly on this film, on Atropia.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I'm fairly new in the union. For 1001 I joined, so it's been 4 years in the union. So I think in LA particularly, most of the people that I work with, I don't think I even know anyone who's a non-union member. So in a lot of ways, it's not like I had a choice because like all the people that I love and I think are really good are union. So that's kind of the benefit in general that is either a symptom of having something to aspire to in terms of technical ability and also like all these things. So I think particularly in LA, it's like most of the crew that I like to work with already is in the union. So the quality and the work ethic is there. I think that's kind of what I'd say about working on a film, especially like low budget. You have young members who are down to work on a weird military, like be in this weirdo world and laugh. And Riley Keaton, my first AC, it's every single take after, you just like start laughing hysterically. And Haley would be like, Riley likes it, I think it's working.
Yeah, go.
it just reminds me that we were already doing 36 days across the world. So we're coming here, we're going to Trona, and we have to function like we're a team that's already together and been working. We can't have first day jitters. So I think was another thing I was able to bring, or my crew was able to bring together. It's like we know what we're doing, we can rely on each other, we're moving, and we're fast.
Do you have some of your crew here?
Oh yeah.
Shout them out, maybe.
Shout out Jake McGee, camera operator on Atropia. Also an amazing cinematographer who has had a film at Sundance 3 years ago as well. A longtime friend as well.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about your films. I guess, Erik, I'll start with you since I saw your film. You told me before that you shot at an existing movie ranch where they do the TV show The Old Man up in Santa Clarita. I don't know how many have seen Atropia in this room, just by a show of hands, anybody? Okay, so the premise is the military, 2006, during the Iraq War, on the heels of the Iraq War, the U.S. military has set up mock villages to train their soldiers they're then going to send to the Middle East. And these are all brand new young recruits who've never been in combat, and they create the village that's 24/7, exactly what Fallujah in Iraq is supposed to be, and then they hire extras to populate that village, who are actors. And that's sort of the premise. So it's kind of satire, it's kind of a lot of things. Tell us a little bit about the location and how it just sounded kind of fortuitous that things worked out, because it's meant to be, a Middle Eastern city that's been under attack by insurgents and troops and bullet holes everywhere and all kind of semblance of violence everywhere.
Yeah, we shot in a movie ranch called Blue Cloud Ranch, which is where a lot of kind of Iraq War, Afghanistan kind of movies and TV shows shoot, because they kind of built up this village, and there's different locations that you shoot in. And The Old Man is a show that shoots there, and also Alia, the lead, is on that show as well, which is funny. Alia Shawkat, who basically went from the TV show to this movie in the same ranch. But usually you shoot it for real. If you were doing something a little bit more realistic, you kind of dress the sets to feel like authentic. This we wanted to shoot and like show the back of the false walls and stuff, and kind of highlight that it was a set. That it's a set, because I think looking at the reference photos of these real villages, some of them do look quite similar. They look really similar, and there's some that look a little bit more like a amusement park or something, and depending on the forts that they built them in. But this one is probably the most fortunate thing is having this strange time between the writer's strike and the SAG strike. So there's this time period where everyone didn't know, a lot of shows shut down and waited out. Old Man was one of them. Right. So we're able to get this ranch and have no one else and share it with no one else, which is pretty rare, because actually that would cause a lot of scheduling issues for us, because they're shooting on this part, we couldn't shoot there. So we had sort of free reign over this whole place in a very specific time period. So,
and the writer-director was not WGA, so there wasn't a conflict.
Yeah, it wasn't a conflict, and it had been written before, I think, the strike. So but we knew that the strike was coming for SAG, so we had to shoot it in this very specific time frame before we had, and also the lead was 8 months pregnant too. That's probably the main thing. Yeah.
Oliver, your film, as you said, was around the world. I know in Thailand you had a DIT boat, or was that in Thailand you shot on the sea, or where were you shooting 3 days on the? In Thailand, yeah. So you built a DIT boat because you essentially spent all your days out there.
We had a little barge which was really difficult to get on and off from. I remember that. So that's I think when my age started showing. I have a little harder time getting on and off that boat. So I ended up spending most of 10 hours in the water probably that day. So for some reason we didn't have a ladder on the boat. So we got better, I think, day 2 or 3. But it felt a little bit like a seal going up and down that thing. It's funny, as the movie was sort of being designed and being put together, we knew we were traveling the world. We had to go to the Middle East, and that was not a location that was really feasible. So we were looking at Blue Cloud actually for the same for our shoots too. But like you said, it works really well from the backside. But once you're inside of it, it felt like we've seen too many TV shows there, too many movies. It wasn't authentic enough, right? So it became, we didn't want to situate ourselves there. So we ended up trying to first shoot that particular sequence in Thailand, where for some reason a monsoon came and rained us out, so we lost that set. Then we were time had us in London, we tried to build it there, we couldn't build it, so that's why we came to Trona and ended up shooting that sequence Trona that originally wasn't planned to be done here. It was fun. We were on a boat, we were 4 days just on the beach, which brings with it its own sort of issues. You know, we get so spoiled. You talked about the fly swatter before, some are like, you know, condors and stuff. We are sort of used to, or you get sort of used to certain luxuries, you know, of how to control the light and what you can do. But you find yourself in a location like that, you can't do any of that anymore, you know. So it works like a very small movie. Really, the only defense you have is to do good prep work, you know, and you can't even change the world around, right? Because the beach is here, the sun is there, so it's front-lit, you want it or you don't want it, you know, but you try to work with it and you try to make sure you shoot the most important stuff at the right time of day and defend yourself a little bit.
It is an indie film, and you're going back to the way you shot a long time ago. I'm curious a little bit about the gear you guys used. You both shot Alexa, and Oliver, you shot with the new Hugo Lights lens. But you tell us a little bit backstory about what you ended up shooting on, because you wanted to shoot on 16.
Yeah, we shot Alexa 35. There's a whole kind of plan to shoot on film, which ended up not happening, I think, for a lot of reasons, but probably a mix of budget and kind of more financial reasons. But we used the Alexa 35 because, you know, the highlights, all technical stuff, it just is the most recent technology. Mm-hmm. And I find that you can expose it like film.
What were you exposing? You pushed the ISO very, very high.
I didn't push it, but in terms of letting the sun kind of do its thing, sometimes in digital you protect the highlights and you start to go under. I think that you don't have to do that anymore with this camera. And we also shot on the Canon XL2, which, if any real heads know, it's one of the greatest cameras ever made. Basically,
tell us the setup for why you shot on the Canon.
So in these villages, they also have fake news reporters who follow soldiers, and Jane Levy plays one of the reporters from Box News, is what it was called. And they have a sort of video camera. There's live feeds in this village that they broadcast the news every day, the updates of what's happening here. And so one of the prop guys brought out these Canon XL2s as a thing, and I was like, come on, you gotta use these. If these things work, we have to use them. But it's funny, these cameras are so finicky too. So I think we had to go through like a few of them, but they have this like interlacing kind of look, which I think is kind of very specific to like mid 2000s the look. And then we used a FLIR thermal camera for like a heat vision kind of thing, it's incredibly hard to source these things. I'm going on like industrial websites and stuff like that to find the highest quality thermal camera, and they have to ship them in a very specific time. And then I use this adapter.
Are you monitoring that when you're shooting? Like, are you doing?
Yeah, it looks like a camcorder. Just like Jake actually operated this one, so he knows a little bit better. With it looks like a little handy cam, but you light it with heat, so you know essentially it's brighter if someone's hotter and stuff. So you pour liquid, it's hot, wow. It goes yellow. And we had a night vision adapter.
And the scene is he's bathing her at nighttime out in the desert.
Yeah, and it's kind of a POV. So these shots are almost like POV shots from a soldier's like goggles or something. And then we had it's called like an Astrovision or something, and it's basically a EF mount Canon adapter with a night vision thing. So yeah, we had all these different mixed media formats, and it kind of made this weird collage of like strange look.
I'm curious about working with Justin. I saw Better Luck Tomorrow. I'm old enough to remember that film. I loved it. I was blown away when I saw that film. I kind of thought I was going to start this whole, Asian American cinema, thing, and it sort of didn't. But the film itself was so dynamic. I'm from California. I'm from I've been in Orange County. So what was it like working with a director who's, he went on to really become just an expert in action movies. I mean, he's done so many of the Furious movies, and he's figured out so many ways to keep them fresh and great, I think. So coming into this, and you said the budget was a little bit maybe more than you normally have on a small film. Was that at play? Was Justin wanting to do a lot of that kind of work? You should tell a little bit about the story.
We don't have car chases, so no, it's not that. I think it was more about telling a very personal story for him. I mean, it is big because we're traveling around the world, but it's not action. The story is, it's about a 26-year-old American, it's based on a true story, 26-year-old American kid, Asian American kid, who, in a sense, in a sort of a search for belonging, and he becomes a Christian missionary, and he sets out to missionize this one of the very last tribes in the world in the Andaman Islands, and you get to live through his relationship with his father, who's trying to stop him. You get to meet a policewoman in the Andaman Islands who's trying to stop him, who rightly so says that the Andaman Island, the indigenous people do not want him or need him, or they don't need Christ. And he ends up making it to the island, and he gets killed. It's a little bit like, so that's the premise of it all.
Spoiler.
Well, it's a little bit like Titanic. That still worked, You kind of knew that thing was shipping, the ship was sinking.
I remember this story.
It came out, right?
Crazy, crazy story.
Yeah. And there was a documentary about it 2 years ago, I think, in the Academy Circle called The Mission. So this is sort of the narrative version of it, and it's a much more personal story and something that could happen to all of us. And it's maybe not religion; it's just something where you want to find a sense of belonging, and this is the journey where that John Allen Shaw was led on. So that's that. No, it's a very personal story. I mean, I think we have our big moments. We fly around on the plane, and we have our Hollywood moments, and I think those are based on what we call our Hollywood moments. Those are based on the belief. We're largely based on the diaries that John Allen Shaw wrote himself. Oh, okay. So, but since he's the narrator of the whole thing, we feel like he's trying to leave a story that he wants to tell.
He's not reliable.
He's not necessarily the most reliable source with his stuff, but he is, much of his sort of dreams are built on our Hollywood factory. It's movies that he's seen, Indiana Jones, it's other movies that he's seen. That's why this sort of his urge to go out there in the world. So I think that's where our movie just became large. I mean, could we have told the whole story in, Washington State, where he's from, in Vancouver, on an independent movie? We probably would have, I mean, we had a version of this movie where we were gonna go, just four of us basically out with a FX6 and try to do it small. But the way it's we started up several times, got shut down by the strike. There was sort of a lot of stuff thrown our way that it's kind of a miracle the movie got made in the end. But I think we sort of filtered out what this movie wanted to be, and this is definitely just in our version of the film.
Right. Tell us about the lights, lenses. We're curious. We were talking about that before. They're pretty new, and you hadn't used them before.
No, I hadn't used them before. I was during tests. I was trying to find a lens that I like. I was thinking of operating some of the stuff myself. I'm not so used to it anymore. I'm not big on exercising, so I was a little afraid my camera was getting too heavy. So I was big deal on getting a mini LF, get something small. What lenses can work with that? And I was over at Kessler, shout out to Kessler over here, and I was testing lenses. And it's weird because I'm not such a techie guy, but you put lenses on, you do tests. I run flashlights through them, get to see what. It's really kind of which lens you like, or I like gutturally. Where you leave sort of a mathematical relationship with your lens, where it's not about perfection, it's about imperfection. And I was going through all types of lenses and stuff I know, new stuff I didn't know, and we were literally finishing the lens test when I think Brad came in with a case and said, FedEx just dropped these in, these are brand new, these are Light Hugos, and we opened it up and it was everything I was looking for. It was super small in size, it was super lightweight, we put it on, they had a shallow focus, all the focus rings were on a perfect spot, so it allowed for quick lens changes, and they were not perfect. I mean, even later on, I realized they're breathing in focus, and I was like panicking. So, my God, how do I have to tell Justin, no, my lenses are breathing? And this is, it's a nightmare now for me. But it is like, kind of remind myself, this is what I was looking for. I was looking for something not perfect, and then when I'm not operating and my operators are shooting a shot, I'm sit this close to a monitor, and I see aberrations, I see problems, I see stuff that is not lining up, and I'm panicking. I'm talking to my camera assistant, do we have to test these lenses, what's going on? But yet again, I have to remind myself, it's because that's why I love these lenses. So it's a very strange relationship you build with these things, but I don't think it's for perfection that we're looking for. We're looking for something that's very hard to explain.
You're nodding. Do you want to say something about the Cook S4s you use with yours or no?
Yeah.
What do you tend to shoot with from some of your past work?
I've used different lenses on every project, and it's kind of the hardest thing for me to do to select them because I don't know really what I'm looking for a lot of times. Sometimes it's just purely like I just need something reliable, and wide. Like TV Glow is mainly master primes. I needed fast and at 12 mil, 14 mil. I needed all those sets. This film, I think. When I was thinking back on the Cook S4s that I used, it was because I used one S4 on a TV Glow. And I remember being like, wow, it looks really great. I should probably use it on the next film. It's something really stupid like that. And the trivial answer is also, we looked and I was like, oh, 0 dark 30. I was like, those are Cook S4s. And I was like, that'd be kind of funny to use the same lenses as 0 dark 30.
Send an email to Catherine Baylor. No.
Yeah, like which lenses? Yeah, and Panavision provided the whole package, Rick, at Panavision. And so, yeah, it just kind of happened really quickly, and I remember getting there, I didn't have much time because we changed our package, like, basically over the weekend. And I get there, I'm looking at all the Panavision lenses, there's so many cool, like, you want to detune these, like, lenses, and it's like, it's kind of cool to be like, oh, there's a guy who's going to just change, like, and I was like, that's just too much for me to think about right now, because I don't know how that's going to perform. I just know that the Cooks are very beautiful. Like, I've used them many, many times. They're very reliable for me. There's a little bit of character. And so, yeah, I think that, like, I have my go-to set of, I realized I was trained on super speeds, but back when they were the cheap lenses, they were like the discount lenses. Now they're like the premium ones, but that's how I see the world. And I try to, like, go just see what other, and I always find myself kind of going back to those.
To that level.
But no, the Cooks are great.
I want to ask you, Erik. Yeah, go.
The other thing that why I love these lenses so much is because they're based on the Leica M lenses. So my dad was a photographer; he used those lenses, so I had a sort of a romantic relationship, still photographer, romantic relationship with those lenses. And they had the Noctilux, which is a T1 or 1, which became our sort of secret weapon to use. So they just had everything to offer at that time.
Erik, so this was like we said at the outset. 1001 was also a first-time director. I interviewed A.V. Rockwell for that, and she loved working with you. There was just a great creative relationship. And this was Haley Gates, who has done many other things in entertainment, but not this exactly. So I'm curious how that worked, compared to how you worked with A.V. and what it is that first-time directors kind of, what you do to make first-time directors, at comfort.
Yeah, this Haley's an incredibly unique and funny and, like, very charismatic person. Haley's also an actress, and if you really go into her history, she was a host of a Vice show called States of Undress, like, from 2014. So a lot of the Vice journalist world, she would go travel to all these different countries and kind of cheekily ask, like, what are you wearing? Like, who makes, and using that to unpack certain other important things. So that's her background, as well as a writer. She worked at the Paris Review. She was in Challengers as an actress, and she also made a short film as well of this before. So she's on top of that, many other kind of music videos or in small kind of projects. And we also we were at NYU together at the same time. So there is like a film background. So it wasn't like Haley's coming from a completely different, and has worked with amazing directors too. She was in Twin Peaks as well. So the process of being on set to her is that's her background, is performance and acting. And also this film is kind of a result of her trying to make a documentary about these places. Right. So that's her background. And I think compared to AV is much more of someone who is very much behind the camera. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the dynamic. It was fun in this one where we get to act. We shot listed, but mainly it was us acting out a scene together. And we'd go to Alia's house and kind of figure out what's happening. And I didn't even write any shots down. It was just like, how does this whole thing work? And
that's neat for a DP to kind of be involved in.
I mean, I learned a lot. Now I act out everything with the director because it makes most sense. Because I don't know, you read something and it's totally different than when you read it out loud, and it changes the way you think about the scene. And that same thing for this film. It was with something so dialogue driven. It's more like, where's the humor in here? You have to find the joke in some way, and you start talking about it, and you're like, oh, you punctuate this with a zoom, or you cut to a wide here. And so working with her was a lot like that, I would say, and we had very specific. She liked one of the first shots of the film as actually like exactly how she did the short, and I was like, it's not broke, so like let's not fix it. Like it totally works. So we have something like that, and then there's all these like kind of loose things where we have to figure it out when we get there. The main thing that we shot listed heavily on was a big actor is coming to set, to come to set, and it's a set piece. It's a huge scene in terms of extras and stuff like that. So we only had like 3 or 4 scout days to go to this ranch for like 2 hours, and we had to figure out. Mm-hmm. And so technical things like that. Like I think for me, it's more like how do you cover and make sure that you're okay in the edit, and spatially everything makes sense technically. But as far as like working with her, I mean, she really cares about performance, and we kind of lean on me and be like, how should we shoot this scene? And that's kind of where it was a good like back and forth, because she's really dialed into the performance component of it.
Before we finish up, because we do want to get to our event, our party, we can't really come to Sundance this year and think everything's the same. Certainly, if you're based in Los Angeles, it's been a community that's been through a lot, and a film community that's been through a lot, with a lot of our members having been impacted, lost their houses. I know you're based in New York, and you shot this movie in LA, but Oliver, you live in LA. I guess the question is, what's the message to the film community there? Hopefully, a positive message that we can see production coming back. We can see the place be certainly at least close to what it once was, and have people continue to want to live there and work there, because there's so much, beside our union and all the different IATSE, below the line, there's so much creative talent based there. Producers, directors, writers are still in Southern California.
First, I want to mention obviously how sad all of this is. In LA, we're not it's going to take a while for us to recover. It's not the same place anymore, and we're all affected by it. I didn't lose my house, so I'm one of the fortunate ones. But what's amazing to see is how our unions are pulling together right now, and how the costumers are gathering clothing. The local 80 is putting together a whole drive for all sorts of supplies. The Teamsters with Zello are putting together furniture for people who lost their homes. Everybody's working together. You go to these venues, it's local 600 members, it's local 728. All of 44, all of the locals are helping out right now, helping each other. So I think that is the spirit that is really amazing. And that is, if we keep that up, and I see several messages going out there from individuals putting it out on social media, to please come out and bring the work back to LA, and it is a little bit of that positivity, I think, that we need to spread, and we're here, we're here we probably have the best workforce around, and we can make these films, and we want to make these films. We've been struggling, I think, over the last couple of years with contract deals, and it's been a little bit. There was a lot of negativity coming from that, on top of COVID, now on top of the fires. I think what's important now is to really try to be positive, concentrate on that, and put our best foot forward on every which way, and help each other.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. Erik, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. One of our producers on Atropia lost their house in Altadena, so Ben Kahn, he's also working on a movie right now, going back, but it's terrible, everything that's happening, and it's definitely Altadena, I think, houses a lot of the film community, I would say.
Yeah.
LA, I mean, I grew up in New York, so there's something as massive as, like, for me, it was 9/11, right? And so the kind of community, seeing LA come together as a broad community, I've actually never seen something like that. I think everyone feels like they're one, which is good. And I think that kind of support system that everyone has for one another is really, really amazing to see. I would say that just kind of seeing how New York did the same thing, I find there is a parallel to that kind of thing. And I do see that it's a moment where there's a lot of divisiveness, I think, also in the industry too, about like what is contracts and stuff like that. Hopefully that everyone sees that it is sort of something bigger. And I do have hope that that's politically, I think there's going to be probably an incentive to try and help stimulate the economy too, as well, with all these talks of tax credits that, like, when were those going to happen? Like,
You actually got a tax credit on it.
yeah, we got lucky and got a tax credit, and then those tax credits are like, it's like winning the lottery, especially with the independent film. I mean, it's like economically, yeah, of course, like, you're going to give it to a huge movie because it makes the most sense. But now it's like, I think there's a big push, seeing how much the competition in the States. I think that there's a big incentive to do that. The Olympics is coming up as well too, so there's a big. I would say that for me, I'm hopeful that people see that as a way into going back to work. And
I think there is a petition online. I don't know the exact link. Maybe someone here can let us know what it is. Shootla.com, but there is a petition going around to get some momentum. We're done with the panel, guys. I'm sorry there's not time for questions, but they're going to be here, so you can ask all your questions to them at our networking event. And thank you so much for everybody coming.